Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you guys for being here. I hope you guys are doing well. In today's video, I'd like to talk about the positive and the negative aspect of the Filipino culture. I'm going to focus on three main Filipino culture that you probably already heard of. If you have visited the Philippines, I'm sure you have heard of these terms before. So the Filipino culture is quite complex and have been founded on several shared values and beliefs. Each value and belief are applied to people's daily lives, revealing its impact on the character and behavior of Filipinos. Now, the cultural values I will mention are generally good, generally positive, but the same values also carry negative aspects to them. I'm gonna go ahead and add these Filipino words on my screen, so just in case you want to go to Wikipedia and look them up, you want to get the direct translations of this word, you can go ahead and do that. So the first one is what we call Pakikisama, which translates to get along with or to go along with other people or getting along with others. This is the Filipino value of social harmony. Pakikisama is often interpreted as having an interpersonal relationship where people are friendly with each other. You will find that generally majority of Filipinos are very friendly people. It has also been described as making the other feel welcome, safe, and nurtured. The word itself connotes a willingness to yield to the decision of the majority to have an anonymous decision amongst the members of the group. Now, for the most part, I find this culture to be very positive because it helps when it comes to building the close and strong relationships. You would notice that Filipino families, for example, they have a very close, tight-knit relationship, and this is one of those attributes that help with that. If you want to live in peace and harmony, you must learn how to be flexible, to be able to adapt, and to be tolerant of others. And if you want to survive in a Filipino family, you need this attribute because Filipino families in general, a lot of Filipino families are big families, and we live in close proximity with each other. Not just your own family, but extended families, relatives, friends. A lot of times there's just so many people you have to socialize and interact with, and we get that training from childhood. You learn that at a very young age that you have to learn how to maneuver this. Just getting along with others is like a very normal thing we learn from childhood. And this has also been very beneficial to Filipinos because a lot of Filipinos work overseas. We have this term in the Philippines, what we call OFW, overseas Filipino workers. And Filipinos have this uncanny ability to, again, to adapt, to be flexible, to be tolerant of others. Going to another country, getting along with people coming from different backgrounds, culture, religion, I mean, you name it. And Filipinos have been able to do that because of this, the word pakikisama, this cultural value called pakikisama. As I mentioned, a lot of this is very positive, but there is a downside to this culture. If you are that person who have decided to express a different opinion, or maybe that person have decided to make a different decision, you get branded as someone who can't get along with others. You lack the ability to get along with others. And for some reason, for some Filipinos, that's like a really negative thing to be called walang pakikisama. Wala means none. Basically, you lack the ability to get along. And when you get branded with that person would often get bullied and shunned, sometimes even from your own family. If you said something that, people in your family didn't like, they will tell you, you have an attitude, you can't get along with others, you have a problem, that kind of thing. And for some, they also think that there's some pride attached to being called as the person who knows how to get along with everybody. So a lot of times you will find that Filipinos go above and beyond to please everybody because you want to be called the person who knows how to get along with everybody. So the downside to that is there's always going to be people who will take advantage of other people. It doesn't matter where you go. There's always good and bad. There's people who take advantage of people. And you would find that, for example, if you go into a workplace, you're the newbie in the workplace. Everybody want to test if you have this ability to get along. So they'll take advantage of you. You get treated like a doormat. There's this thing like you almost go into this hazing period. And it's very, very difficult. It can get very, very toxic very quick. Some people will ask you to do things that's not really even a part of your job. Things like, get me a cup of water. pay for my snacks, get me a coffee, get me this, get me that. These are things that's not really part of your job, but they want to test how far you will go to get along with others. I mean, let's be honest, everywhere you go, there's always going to be prey and predator. You know, some people will find ways to just test and test you to just see how far this person will go to prove that they can get along with everybody. And what makes this even harder is that some work environment, there's this culture of if you want to become a regular employee or if you want to get this promotion at your work, they have to get the votes coming from employees. So now you really have to please everybody. And again, this environment can get very toxic. You will find that this opens up a room for bullying, environment for bullying and just mistreatment. It's very sad. And if you are that person, you find yourself to be in a position where you have to get along with everybody. And this can go on and on and on, even in families, relatives, for example. They will borrow money. And of course, you can either say yes or no, depending on your situation. But sometimes you would find that it's very hard to say no because the moment you say no, that person will label, oh, wala kang pakikisama. You don't know how to get along with others because you didn't want to lend the money. I mean, it's ridiculous. Okay, as I mentioned, trying to get along is a very good trait. But sometimes some people who take advantage of, see an opportunity to, again, take advantage of other people. And it's not always good to be agreeable. You know, Filipinos tend to just say yes to everything. There's this expectation that you're supposed to just say yes to everything. The moment you say no, you get labeled as walang pakikisama. And that's not very good because, again, it opens up this environment of bullying. And I tell Filipinos this, you know, the thing with that is, you know, you're going to have to learn how to negotiate and stand your ground. And you should be okay with getting branded as the person who doesn't know how to get along because you can't please everybody. That's just the reality. All right. Okay, let's move on to the next one. This is what we call utang na loob, which literally means a debt of one's inner self. Now, my literal interpretation of this, my own interpretation of this, is what I call a debt of gratitude. Now, the essence of utang na loob is an obligation to appropriately repay a person who has done one a favor. The favors which elicit the Filipino sense of utang na loob are typically those whose value is impossible to quantify, or if there is a quantifiable value involves a deeply personal internal dimension. This internal dimension, loob, one's inner self, differentiates utang na loob from an ordinary utang. Utang translates to debt. Being an internal phenomenon, utang na loob thus goes much deeper than ordinary debt or even the Western concept of owing a favor. You know, when you owe someone a favor and you pay back, that's the concept. But with this Filipino culture of utang na loob, it goes much deeper than that. Filipinos put a high value on showing gratitude to those who have helped and cared for them. And generally, this is a very good trait. Being grateful, being thankful, giving back to those who have helped you. To further explain that, you can also explain this as, you know, if you become successful, you're supposed to look back, to give back, to not forget where you came from. And you can do that by helping others, pulling each other up. If you get to the top, you're supposed to remember those who have helped you go up. So you're supposed to help others in return. Again, as I mentioned, generally this is a very, very good attribute of Filipinos, you know, giving back and not leaving others behind. Now, unfortunately, some benefactors knowingly take advantage of this by being generous to someone so that this person would feel indebted to that benefactor. And that person, the benefactor, would then force or oblige this person to do things they may not want. And this one applies to every aspect of relationships in the Philippines. Unfortunately, it even applies to the relationship of parents and their children. You would find that in the Philippines, since there's really no stable retirement system, a lot of parents would invest on their children's college education. And I'm not saying all, but a lot of parents do. They have this expectation that once they get old, this child would then take care of them, you know, basically take care of their retirement. They always think that this investment, I will get a return out of this. And this child is now expected to not only care for that aging parents, but also take care of their other siblings' education. So if you are the eldest in the family, you're supposed to help your other siblings go to school, help basically sacrifice yourself for the family. Now, I'm not saying this applies to every family, okay? I have to put that out there that some families are not like this, but again, a lot of families are like this. A lot of parents do feel like, we should invest in this child, especially if that child is the most promising, maybe the smartest amongst the children, maybe the child who has the most potential. They would put investment on that child, send that child to finish the college education with the expectation that they're gonna get this, they're gonna get a return out of that investment. Now, that sounds very ideal, especially with the economic, situation of the country. You kind of do need to help each other out. And it works for some family when everybody is helping each other out. For example, you have 3 children in the family, the eldest do end up graduating, becomes a teacher or a nurse, and now that child will help the second child go to school, and then that second child help the third child. So everybody's helping each other out. You as a family move up. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. Some families, you would find that there may be more than 5 children in the family, and then one person gets ahead. And then now that person will have to take care of everybody. So there's this feeling of, for that person, that's a very big responsibility. And this is also one reason why, really, I'm gonna have to just say this. That's one reason why the country is poor, because some people just can't move up because you're tied with these responsibilities, and some people feel helpless. And you would also find that some people don't even want to become successful. They don't want to go to college. They don't want to be the one who gets ahead, because they don't want to be responsible for everybody, because this is a big responsibility. I've talked to a lot of people in this situation. They find like they're trapped. Some people have even called this, we call this the debt of gratitude, because you're supposed to pay back that debt, right? Because you're grateful. But some people call this the debt trap, because they feel like they're in that situation. They're trapped in this debt, and then they have to pay it back. And it's like unquantifiable. For example, if I was going to school as a college student and one family member, a relative, paid for my tuition fee once in one semester. Now, if I graduate as a person who have that sense of utang na loob, or, I want to look back and pay back, then I can go and maybe give that money back, maybe even double, triple that. The problem is there's this expectation that you're supposed to, because this person have helped you in the past, you're supposed to just constantly give and give and give. And again, there's always people who will take advantage of this. You would find that they would mention that, oh, remember when you were in college, I helped you with your tuition fee. So now every time they ask you for money, you're supposed to give this back. This kind of thing, again, in every aspect of this, you will find that there are people who gets taken advantage of and people who take advantage of other people. Okay, let's talk about the culture of resilience in the Philippines. Filipinos are known for their ability to bounce back from difficult situations and maintain a positive attitude. Now, the downside of living in a tropical paradise is that the amount of calamities hitting the country, the frequency of disasters that had wrecked the country. We have typhoons, earthquakes, landslides, volcanic eruptions, and flooding is a big problem in urban areas. In fact, right now Manila is flooded. So with all of that, you would find it's so amazing to see that people still has a smile on their faces. You will see that even during a typhoon. Now, this is a story growing up. I remember growing up, as I mentioned, I was raised in Bicol region. And we get hit by a lot of typhoons. And it's amazing that sometimes even during a typhoon, people would gather together, have a little potluck. Filipinos have found a way how to deal with this difficult situation instead of just being hopeless and just being scared. Filipinos has gotten so desensitized with all of these calamities. So we've learned how to kind of like manage it. Not just manage it, even enjoy the process. And for the most part, that's a very good thing. And in fact, you do need to be resilient to be able to live in the Philippines. One thing that I remember growing up is that even though there's so many difficulties in the country, I have never really met a Filipino, at least that's my experience. Everybody's experience is different. No matter how many typhoons we got in some of those years, I have never met someone who's been so hopeless that they don't want to live anymore. There's really not that. No matter how difficult the situations, people are still smiling. People are still joking around. People find ways to have a party, to have a potluck, to gather together, to sing. I mean, it's amazing. That's one thing that's very unique to the Filipino culture. Now, let's talk about the downside to this, because this is not all positive. The problem with this is the speed by which Filipinos transform trauma into acceptance. Again, Filipinos has become so desensitized with all of these calamities that sometimes they just don't really care anymore. Instead of solving problems, we simply cope or wait for the problem to pass. We're just like, you know what? It is what it is. We're just going to have to wait for it to pass. For example, a typhoon. Now, you would think that instead of just waiting it out, people can actually do something about it. There are things you have no control over, but there are some things you can do something about. Like you would find that after a typhoon, a lot of these houses just get ravaged. A lot of people lose their roof, part of their house. But they could have prevented that by preparations. They could have tied the roofs, do something, but instead they're just waited out. It's gonna pass. Hopefully we don't get hit that much. Instead of actually doing something about it. Again, Filipinos has gotten so desensitized, being very resilient, but there are things you can actually do something about. But Filipinos tend to just accept their fate instead of doing something about it, become very passive and overly content. And another culture that's attached to this is the bahala na attitude. This is very known in the Philippines. And this bahala na attitude translates to come what may attitude. Well, it is what it is. It's gonna come. We're just gonna have to deal with it. It is what it is. Now, leaving everything to the hands of fate and even to the hands of God. Again, they mix this with this being religious and the thinking, you know what, God's gonna take care of it. God will eventually take care of it. That kind of attitude. And as I mentioned, resiliency is a necessity when dealing with things you have no control over. But resilience has also become an excuse for some to not do anything, even with the things you can do something about. For example, again, the typhoon. People could actually prepare, tie your roof, make sure that there's enough food in the pantry. Do something about it. Prepare for that coming typhoon. But people just like, it's okay. We're just gonna wait it out. It's gonna pass. Hopefully we don't get hit that much. Flooding in Manila is another big example. People have gotten so used to that flooding. Well, there are solutions to this. The government could actually better the infrastructure, do something about the drainage system. But, they're like, you know what? People are so used to that. We are so resilient. We can deal with it. It's going to be okay. Sometimes this resilience thing has become like a hindrance for development, or we can actually find solutions to some things, but people just become so passive. That is the downside to that. All right, I'm gonna cut this video here. Thank you for watching. I will see you on my next one. Bye, everyone.